All right, we are back up. We are in game here, and what we're going to do is take a look at some ISBoxer live in action and go over some theory on hotkey setup and some user interface stuff. This is attempt number 2. I recorded this and uploaded it, and realized I've got a ultra wide ratio here, and YouTube doesn't necessarily like those, and it kind of did some funky stuff where it wasn't very legible. So if you see kind of some stuff cut off here, I'm kind of set the screen record to be a little bit more aspect ratio friendly. So hopefully it doesn't turn out crappy, and it's and readable, and can view it on YouTube and see what's going on better. But anyways, long story short there, if you see some of this cut off, that is why. So we'll get into some of the basics on the user interface and go over some settings here to start with. So when we were going through like the setup wizard and you're setting up your display, a couple of those options and what they actually look like in game. We've got here, there was 2 main ones there, like the show taskbar and then leave blank space. The taskbar, very simple, straightforward. Do you want your taskbar shown, or do you want the windows to overlap it? So if you got a small monitor, you might want to select to not show the taskbar so you can maximize your space. But I think by and large, everyone's got multiple displays or big displays. So it's no sweat off your back just to have that up there so you can actually see it. And then the other one to cover, make sure that you're aware of, and pretty important for everybody, and likely we'll have on, is the leave blank space. So what that looks like here, I've got 6 characters up. So you've got your main window here. And then since I selected the show everything else along the bottom, here at the bottom, there's 6 spots here. So there is the blank space here, and then there's the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then the 6th one here, which is the one that's kind of cut off due to the aspect ratio. So my main character is up here, and its home is this blank space here, the number 1 spot here. If I click over to my Zerker, my main went into his home, and my Zerker popped up, and click on to the next one, and the Zerker goes into its home, and so on and so forth here across all the characters. So whenever you click into a new window, your other character goes into its home, and it's always in the same spot. If you were to not have leave blank selected, what that would look like is if I'm in my Bard here, and if I were to click over to my main tank here, my Bard would then swap into my main tank spot. He wouldn't go into his little blank spot home. If I then would click from my main tank to my Zerker, my main tank would then pop into my Zerker's spot, and my Zerker would come up into the main window. So you probably get the idea there, like your characters would always be in different locations. So leaving a blank space on ensures that they're always in the same spot. And you'll probably want to make sure that that's on, because there'll be lots of times, especially as you're learning, like, oh my god, I'm screwing up, I need to go take control of my cleric and res everybody, or my main tank or whatever. So I know where my cleric will always be at, in my particular case is the one all the way to the right here. So again, you'll probably want to leave that on. Similar to taskbar, I think the only situation where someone would probably not want that is if you've got small screen space and you want to maximize as much space as possible. All right, so the next thing to discuss, to cover at the top left here, you've got a couple of hotkeys. Or I shouldn't say hotkeys, but toggle keys. And these will toggle hotkeys on and off. So the one to the left is the default broadcasting hotkey, and that will be defaulted to on. You see the arrows are kind of highlighted there, meaning that is on. So that's going to ensure every time you type in your 1 to the plus sign that it broadcasts to every single window. If you need to turn that off, all you do is you click the big A, and you see it kind of becomes unhighlighted. And you'll want to turn that off whenever you're sending tells, which you'll probably quickly learn and probably still forget about, as I still do. So if you're sending tells with numbers in them, those numbers will still trigger stuff. So you might want to tell somebody, hey, stop pulling 34 mobs, and it'll trigger anything attached to 3 and 4. Or, hey, I'll be back at 9 o'clock, and it's going to trigger 9 when you type that 9. So hopefully get some better muscle memory and start remembering to turn that off. Otherwise, you might find yourself going to hit something or hit a burn or something like that and find out you triggered those accidentally. The second one here is going to be the broadcast all, and this is going to be defaulted to off. And when that is turned on, I'll click it on here. You'll see you get a little warning here. When this is on, this is going to broadcast all key and mouse strokes to all windows. So as I move my mouse around here, hopefully it's not too small on the bottom, you'll see the mouse is matching that movement and being mirrored in all windows. So you could, in theory, set up so that every single character's UI is an exact copy, and set up so that you've got particular buttons all in the same place. So instead of like hitting a number to trigger, you can just mouse over and click. This could potentially give you the option to have like a lot more buttons than even you have on your keyboard. But I haven't played around with it too much. I am trying to go for a very, very simple setup here. I want to hit as few buttons as possible and just do stuff as easily as possible. So the 1 through the plus sign, like I've got more than enough stuff tied to those to be effective. I also just kind of feel like if this is on and you're trying to click around stuff, if tunes are facing different directions, it'll start messing with targeting and things like that. So, and then you got to go through and play with click-throughs, settings and things like that, and then potentially change them if you're playing them as a main outside of ISBoxer, yada, yada, yada. Don't use it for that is probably the end of that discussion there. But this is also going to not just broadcast, again, your mouse movement, but broadcast your keystrokes. So I'm going to start using my WSD, your arrow keys here, and you'll see everybody is matching those movements. And we're moving forward, we're moving backwards, and we're doing ourselves a little dance here on screen because they're all copying that movement. So the theory there is like you can move your characters through zones this way instead of using a follow command. Unfortunately, though, the turning just isn't accurate, and everybody will be turning like different radiuses constantly. So I'm assuming it's just a lag input, but I don't know, maybe it's just a race selection type thing. But you'll find, well, first off, like you would need every character stacked on top of each other and facing the same direction, which you kind of really only can get from the moment you zone or port in anywhere. It's kind of hard to try to get everybody to do that if they've been moving around and fighting and things like that. But even if you do, as you start doing any sort of turning or taking any corners, you'll see characters will all start heading off in different directions. And it'll very quickly come to the point where there's like 90-degree differences in the directions they're facing. So long story short, you're going to rely on /follow for that, unless you're just in an open zone that's just a huge, giant straight shot or just short mob-to-mob type things where you find yourself needing that or wanting to use that. So that will likely be off for most of the game, but where you will have it on, and I'll do a little demonstration here. Let me click on my ranger. Let's assume that this ranger is make believe that he's a quest mob. You can target him, you can get your quest, and you can like do a /assist command, and it will start typing it in all windows. So that everyone gets him on target, and let's type in, say, ready, and everybody is saying ready here. For some reason, only a couple showed up here. They're just out of range there, but so yeah, so that's what you could utilize it for, is that, so once more, there we go, everybody's saying it now. So you could utilize it for that ready command there. So zone into everything nice and quick and quickly, not having to click around, tab around into all your windows and hitting or type in /ready. So you can utilize this as well for camping out /camp or /quit /Q to get out of game super quickly. All right, so that is basically and really all that there is. Let me turn this off so it doesn't start messing with stuff. But that is all that there is to your ISBoxer user interface. So from here on out, we are just going to be talking EverQuest stuff. So the EverQuest user interface is pretty intricate, and all of this stuff here that we're going to be setting up is just all built into EverQuest. Because again, we'll kind of reiterate what we talked about in that first part. ISBoxer does not interact with EverQuest in any way, shape, or form. It is not injecting any information. It is not reading any information. All it is doing is interacting with the Windows environment. So it is telling Windows, hey, display these windows like this, and then interacting with input and telling Windows, hey, this keystroke send to all of these windows. So what you need to do with ISBoxer is set it up so that all characters have your default keys, so we're just going to be talking the 1 through plus sign, that all characters have the exact same setups to those keys. So if the button 1 is attack on one window, you want it set up that it is that attack in some shape or form on the number 1 in all windows. If 2 is your mash stuff, which happens to be for me, your spam stuff, that when you hit it, you want all of your characters to be doing that same thing. So it's set up across all windows. And the way you would hopefully want to do that, what helped for me is on my main control character, my tank here. This is my control tune that I'm in 95% of the time. Along this main bar here, you'll see there's a bunch of social hotkeys here. The colors are just kind of random. There's nothing really too like specific to the theme there, other than red does attack stuff, yellow is utility, green is buff stuff, but just nothing you really have to necessarily follow. But so these are all kind of labeled, and if I click around in here, you'll see there's nothing going on in these social macros. These are just a legend for me. So I set this up when I first started using ISBoxer, and I just leave it up there because I generally have everything memorized and I know where it's at. But sometimes you still go through and have a brain fart and be like, wait, was that 9 or 0? So I leave it up there so it's set up. And I'll click into another window here, and you'll see it's actually generally pretty empty because there's nothing really actually tied to a lot of these keys. We'll get to it. A couple do have some stuff in there. But this, again, is just my legend. So I know for my main character, if I click this, nothing's going to happen because it's tied to keyboard swipes. But I know if I hit 7 in this particular instance, it is going to trigger my bard. This is going to trigger him to cast his speed and invis. So helps for moving around. But so on this 7 here, it's set up to my bard. If I go over to my Zerker, there's nothing going on in 7, and he has nothing tied to 7 because I don't want him triggering some kind of attack skill when we want stuff being invised. So that's what you're going to want to do, is kind of set up a general theme. Even maybe take to paper and pencil, because if you have, depending on your class makeup and stuff like that, you want to make sure that all the good stuff that needs to be clicked has its own key and its own setup. Most characters have a lot of stuff that's going to be tied to the same stuff. So in my particular play style, I have lined up to number 2 is like the spam stuff. And almost every single character, in fact, every single, at least that I'm playing, every single character has a hotbar dedicated to the number 2 and tied to the number 2, so that when I hit it, it will trigger across all its windows, which is mostly offensive skills, or if I pop over to my cleric, it's got its quick cast remedy stuff. So as I'm tapping 2, consistently through a fight, I am being consistently hit with heals, and that's the gist of keeping me up. So and that's probably going to be fairly standard across everybody there who's got some sort of healer in there. You'll want it tied to that main spam key and hitting yourself with that. And then some of the other utility stuff. So I've got a bard, and he's got some of the unique abilities, but if you've got a shaman or a enchanter, will potentially probably have some unique stuff that triggers debuff, slow kinds of things. So you want to make sure that you got everything set up for that. From an actual setup of the hotkeys themselves, I'm not going to go into setting those up because I'm sure everyone is pretty familiar with it. But what I do have, or before I get into there, just a little bit of somewhat of a disclaimer here. Don't look at this user interface and be like, oh, I'm going to copy and set up my bars like this. That's obviously, that doesn't mean anything. And on this main character here, I've got one hotbar here set up to the number 2 with what I tend to spam through, but I don't have any other hotbars that you'll see here in a moment across other characters, because I tend to more micromanage what's going on here, and this is a Shadow Knight, so he doesn't have really a whole lot of stuff that you need to click to trigger 5 or 6 things at the same time like you would a Zerker. I've got the main one here that'll go through some order of operations on spells and abilities and things like that. And as a spinner here for a couple of different options on, what I want cast depending on the situation. But everything else, I've got a hotkey set up that'll go through some burn stuff, but even then I find myself just manually clicking through, and I don't always want to click everything at the same time. So long story short, and it'll probably be pretty similar, like whatever your main driving tune is, whatever you play as your main character, is probably going to be similar situation. I'm guessing you probably got a little bit more management of what it's doing because you're much more familiar and play it more often. But I'm going to click around in some other tunes here, and you're then going to see something pretty different, so that there is a general theme going on, even some colors here. So for the sake of continuity, I've got hotbars and colors set up across all my box tunes. So I have hotbar 10 in every single tune is tied to the number 2 hotkey. And I have it blue on all characters. And this just offers a good visual indicator, like, is stuff being pressed down here? Like, I can quickly my eyes will catch the blue, and is it going on? Red, you probably surmise, is burn stuff. So I can quickly see down here if I tap my burn hotkey, which is all tied to the number 9. Like, I can quickly see, like, cool, burns went off, or why is this character not being pressed? Why didn't burn go off on that character? So I think this is a nice little tip just to kind of help get things set up initially and as you're setting up new characters. And again, also, like, don't pay attention to the order of operations. I'm going for simplicity's sake here. This is a 100% KISS setup. Keep it simple, stupid. So, like my Zerker, like I've got like 10 things tied to his burn here. If I'm playing him by himself and controlling him, I wouldn't want to click all those at the same time. If I'm doing raid and stuff like that. So there's separate keys that will trigger burns for a more sustained amount of DPS. But from a boxing standpoint, doing group stuff and mission stuff, everything is stupid easy. Like, you don't need to get that involved in it. There's no fights where I need 10 minutes worth of, sustained burn rotations. It's kill a name and then 15 minutes later kill the next spawn name, in best case. So I don't mind just popping everything off at the same time there. And I've also I've got Frenzy in there, which is on auto skill, but I guess it's in there if I don't have attack on and still want to do DPS, just see that it's going on. So this is just like quick setup here. And something that will be unique to each tune, each character. And there's tons of guides on how to set up these hotkeys, as well as just like your rotations and what should be in there. But yeah, it's set up across that on all characters. Beast Lord here, obviously a little bit more full, just because Beast Lords have a ton more of stuff to be clicking. Let me get out of my buffs here into different spell set, just have a notice there. So yeah, you'll want to set that up. Casters, I don't have up, so I really can't show it, but it might be a little bit different because there'll be there'll be obviously spells in there and not really a lot of abilities. And also, if you have any questions, like there's a certain order of operations that need to be done within there. Again, that's a whole other video because spells and delays and clicks and things like that have different effects on spamming stuff. So again, whole different video there. So back to kind of like just the general theory and like what you're doing here. Just get back and circle around here is you want to just set it up so that it's consistent across all characters. You don't want the number 2 set up to be casting a group invis for travel on one tune and attacks on other tunes. So kind of lay this out, figure it out how you want to set up based on your group, and then just go through and, make sure everybody is consistent and the same. And then that way, like when I'm on a particular mob and fighting, like I'm just hitting everything from one character and it's broadcast and they're all doing their thing. We'll get a little bit now into the actual macros themselves, or the social macros, some stuff that you'll want to do and set up with them. So again, you see here, everything here is blank for the most part. And for my particular playstyle, so it's always just been defaulted to attack. I think that just goes back to 99 before there was even a full screen. Like when you first opened up, the attack one was always in 1. So that's just always what I go to. I think now on a fresh install, it sets up attack to Q. But I always put it into 1 again. So you put it wherever you want to put it. And you could tie this to a Q. So you could set it up so that it's on the Q stuff, but I found that gets even more wacky and crazy. I've seen some setups where they'll have stuff tied in a more traditional RPG FPS where stuff is tied to like the letter E, R, and G and stuff like that. But that gets even more wacky when you're trying to type stuff and it starts broadcasting. So I stick to numbers. But yeah, so like I've got on my main character here. One is just normal old attack. But on the other characters, when I go into here, I've got it set up to a social macro so that they're always like assisting. So I've got in here assist. I get main is a little bit redundant at this point, as long as your character, and we'll set up as main assist. I always put a pause in there for that brief tenth of a second, because I just found it gets a little more consistent. If you're aware, like, I'm sure you're aware, social macros aren't 100%, and 9 times out of 10 they work. But sometimes, especially, it's usually self-inflicted. Like you're spamming through keys, and you try to hit 1 and then 2 really quickly, and it doesn't always take. But I found that just putting that brief pause in there will get a little more consistent and lock it into that macro. And we'll probably see as we're fighting. Again, it's not perfect. Where it can get kind of wonky is if like characters are still casting an ability. When one mob dies, you need to quickly click on the next and tap 1. It won't take. But then what you get into there to make sure that you can spam it is make sure it's /attack on and not just /attack with nothing. Because just /attack will toggle. It'll toggle it on or off. So if you're in a situation and you're fighting trash mobs and you kill one and quickly click the next and click 1, if 2 characters pick it up and the other 2 characters were in the middle of casting something, so they don't pick it up, you'll run into a situation where half your DPS is attacking and half is not. And if you did not have the attack on and just /attack and you tried to tap 1, it would then just flip that. They would just toggle themselves, so the 2 attacking would stop and the 2 that were not would then start. So having attack on allows you from one character just to tap 1 a couple of times, just to make sure it's always picked up and it's always going to attempt to turn attack on. And then you may want to put in a separate key for a /attack off, in case you need to turn it off on everybody. And I had one for the longest time, and I never at any point needed to click it. So I just got rid of it so that I just had another blank space and another spot for things. So far it hasn't come back to bite me in the butt. But I don't know, you may want to do that. But I haven't had any situations where I've had pains where I start attacking something I don't want to because attack was left on. The other key there, I do that similar thing with the follow. So as we kind of discussed in the setup video, like the default settings for follow for ISBoxer just don't like EverQuest. So you'll need to set up a key and map out a spot where you want follow to go. So for my particular case, I've got it set to the number 8 key. So my main driving character, there's nothing in there because he's the one that I want people to follow. But when I hit the 8, all the other characters are going to do a similar thing. They're going to target the main character, and they are going to, I've got to pause in all of them as well, just to make sure that it all gets picked up and I don't start running and leave someone behind. And especially in this situation, because I'm not spamming 8 into something else. So when I hit 8, everybody's going to follow me after a half a second pause there. So on all the characters, that all looks like that. Some of the other utility things to kind of go over. So like melody, I've got set up unique to the buff thing. My number 4 key here is going to be for my Zerker. It's a feign death. And I've also got it in some other spots to manually click. But this is like my oh shit key. Across all my characters, it'll do aggro dropping if stuff goes crazy. I got like a wizard up, you put an evac in there to get you out of the zone, something that's quick and easy to click. So you may potentially want to do that. I've got the NOS clicky here for the absorb damage on all tunes. So I've been a Heroes Forge. So my last key there is usually kind of like the empty and swap in stuff there, but for right now, I have that in there so I can ignore the note mechanic on boxing that. I think that's generally it. For the sake of time, I'll get into and actually killing some stuff here. We'll get some buffs going, and that's actually a good one here. So this 0 here, like this isn't going to cast long duration, symbol, focus kinds of things. But that's got lined up to it, and there's some stuff in here. So it's going to go through some actual social macros and cast. It's the short distance, the shorter length type buffs. So like in the Shadow Knight case here, it's going to go through and cast this stance and skin. Beast Lord, it'll cast shared merciless ferocity. Cleric has got a good batch of them in there. Because Cleric's got the ward, and there's the steely stance here, and divine intervention. All items that will like wear off fairly quickly, so you'll want to refresh every couple of fights. And you can get more intricate. Like I've got them set to Gina keys. So it'll kind of let me know, like, hey, this spell is down, time to recast type of stuff. I don't got it up and running now because it'll just be like just a lot of background noise and be obnoxious to listen to. And in a fight like this, I'll tap 0 now to get everything going, and you'll see everybody starting to actually do some stuff down here. I probably won't need to click this throughout the rest of this fight because everything in here is just stupid easy, and it's not necessary. Before car, I'll probably re-tap that to get that going. I'm also going to get melody up and running, so I'm going to tap the minus key, which is tied to my bard's melody, so he is going to get up and running on that. And we are about ready to go. I'm going to tap 8 to get everybody on follow, and hopefully you saw everyone kind of did a little bit of a jig. And I'm going to move around and just make sure all the windows are moving here. Being able to see everything on screen at once is just as equally a selling point as the broadcasting keys. Old school way to get something like this, everybody would just have to be permanently locked into small windows so you could see them, and that's what you got to play in, or just tabbing around. So having this here where everything is nice and small but still can get into its main spot is really, really awesome. So we're going to come here, we're going to select my particular play style here. Where's my ranger at? He is pretty fresh and weak, and I don't care for his melee damage, and their range bow damage is pretty darn strong, and especially here, you get a headshot most of this zone. So I'm going to break his follow and just kind of set him up here. We're not going to really go over strategy-wise and what we're doing here. This is all silly straightforward, but I'm going to break him, and you'll see there'll be a little bit of micromanagement through the zone here where I need to put him back on follow to move around and then break him off so that he can do his range damage here. And let me also make sure, so he's set up here with his bow, and then I've got in the spinner here like an option for melee if I do want to pop him back to there, which we'll do for the last mob because I got some stun things in here. So we got that going. I'm going to hail as I see my shaman buffs are getting low, so we'll get this done real quick and we'll start it up. We're going to head off to the side here and let these mobs come in. And you'll see here as we're moving around on follow, the warder kind of set him up perfectly. Like the distance on follow is like really like perfect for meleeing most mobs. So they'll always want to face you. So what you'll be figuring out here is just kind of like the nuance of like as you're going up to mobs and like running through them, like where you want to stop and like turn around or swing around them so that all your characters are facing them. So like the warder's pet here would like be a perfect example. Like I would just attack on and everybody's in melee range. So we'll come through here, we'll run through and get everybody there, and we're cool. So we're going to tap 1. And I can look across all characters down here and see like, cool, attack is going. We're all set. Rogue's going through stuff. I don't see any red text spamming telling me that stuff is out of range. So bing, bang, boom. We'll start killing this stuff. Before I get attack on this next one, I do have game parse, whatever you want to call it, set up here. Close that. And is this going to pick this up? Yeah, okay, cool. There's nothing showing on screen there, but this is another one. I usually use like the log parser, is a little bit simpler, but I've been using GAM parser a little more lately because a couple of these tunes have just kind of hit 125 and just getting up on AA, so GAM parser is a lot more feature rich, so I've been trying to learn them a little bit more and testing some things out. So those two are dead. Let's go over here, kill these couple of guys. Tapping the 1, and then after the 1, I'm just hitting the 2 a couple of times, which is going to go through and start hitting all the good DPS stuff here. And I can take a look here and be like, all right, cool, everyone's doing their thing. If a character wasn't showing up on there, or they were showing up very light on the DPS, I would know something is wrong and they maybe weren't in melee range, or attack didn't trigger, didn't catch kind of stuff. So just gives me 2 options here just to see what's going on and making sure everything is good. And these mobs here are like so stupid weak, so you could just kind of go through and just tap 2 a couple of times and you're good, and they're dead. You're fighting hard mobs, you might hear like you're spamming 2 a little bit more often. So now that we kind of warped around here and ported, follow broke, so I'm going to tap attack 8 once more and get everything on me. We're going to come up here, I'm going to start attacking. I'm going to back the ranger back off so he could do some better DPS. Can't headshot these, but the next couple of mobs you can, and he'll get back up to a good amount of contribution there. So if you're playing just like one single character, you might just be tapping 2 every 20 or 30 seconds. It might be all that you need. Set to like whatever your mash key is, because everything is going to be on a fairly similar rotation. But then as you get into fights, you'll know like the rotations don't match up, so you'll need to spam it a little bit more often. But when you're boxing tunes, it needs to be a little bit more consistent, like hitting it like every second or two. Or if you're fighting something tough and you want to make sure your cleric is just going non-stop heals, you'll be, hopefully you can hear that, like just what that would sound like he'll be spamming through it. You can also set up so that, I'm not talking here, these guys got all messy. You can set it up so that there's like an option for repeater in here, so you can just hit it and it'll just repeat itself. So in my kind of talking and forgetting about positioning this guys, it'll kind of show you like a good example here. They're kind of like all in a weird spot here. So when you get like that, usually just kind of twisting around, you'll see they're always facing me. We'll kind of get you into a spot where they are all going to be facing the character, the mob that you're attacking. So let's move the ranger up a little bit more, make sure you get some of the bard loving. We'll do a little bit of moving after this guy as well. All right, I know my ranger is not on follow, so I'm going to tap 8 again, and cool, he's up and with me. And we are going to follow our little party here. And hopefully this time on this recording, this works a little bit better, because this part of the quest has been buggy lately. Like I've been kind of farting around and farming this since I came back a couple months ago pretty consistently and regularly, and everything's been good and consistent. But in the last like week or two, this has been doing that like weird bugs where you get like waves of mobs, like 3 will spawn and then like 30 seconds later another 3 will spawn. And it's usually not too much of an issue because these guys are pretty weak, so they die pretty quick anyways. And these guys are, headshot will absolutely murder through these guys. But since it's going to be dead pretty quick, I'm not going to bother breaking the ranger off. Let's see, I kind of lost track of where I was. There we go. I'll find the other 2 here. Do they get into the ditch here? That's always annoying when they get down here. It messes with targeting. Let's see if we can get the ranger in range here. Yeah, cool. There we go. Just taking a look here, making sure everybody's contributing, everybody's doing some attacking. And you will see down here, you might see some red spamming from the ranger. That's just because I've got tied to his number 2, like kicks and things like that. So it's just kind of telling me it's out of range. But I still see the bow stuff going off, and he's still going through his animation. So that's good. If it was just red spam or just like the yellow target is out of range, default color spam, you would know you need to pay a little more attention to that. So we're going to do some more moving here. And then when you've got characters on follow, it's just the same old sort of theory as always. When you've got tunes on follow, you want to move around as if you're dragging like a tractor with you, a trailer with you, or pulling a pallet jack. You want to take turns kind of wide. Maybe before you turn, give a brief stop for a second or two. Make sure that all the tunes are up with you. Just do as much as you can to prevent them from getting caught on corners. So we'll back our ranger off and get into this last portion here and tapping 1, get everybody attacking and going through the 2s. If I do see something weird, so cool. Good example to kind of show you what's going on here. I tapped 1, but nothing's going on here because the assist didn't take. So I'm going to tap 1 once more, and now they've got assist going. Let's get aim parse back in. Much, much better. So as you see, like it's not perfect, but that's why you're kind of taking a look. These are kind of like rear view mirrors, just Always keeping your eyes scanning over them. So when you see that, especially at the start of the fight, check in that red spam, or making sure that your attack is actually going through. This guy's got that little knockback, which can be kind of funky and just kind of twist around and make sure all the characters are back on attack. And I see here there we go, everybody's back into range. So I am only really hitting my 2 key through here. Maybe the next mobs I'll start to hit a little bit more. So tied to my 2, like again, there's all the spam stuff, but I've also got abilities tied to 3. So there's a lot of spells there. There's like a dot rotation on the Beast Lord. So it's the stuff that's a little more mana intensive, and the stuff that you don't want to be hitting like every second or two. So like on the bar, Bellow is on there, the one that you don't want to constantly refresh because you want it to run its course. So I'll tap it here. I'll get some dots going up on here. But with the other stuff like leading up to this area, like I didn't hit it a single time. And that is just a sort of like a mana save, but also like not going to waste time casting dots on mobs that take 10 seconds to die. Like it's not efficient. Yeah, it's going to be more DPS, but again, I just want to be simple. I want to be like effective, and if a mob dies in 10 seconds or 11 seconds, it's no difference to me. So that's something you're only going to want to tap on some of these longer lasting mobs, at least like however you have stuff set up. So I don't know, you may have it a little bit differently, or you may want to just be as thorough and effective as humanly possible, so we'll be maximizing. All right, we'll get into Firethorn here, and even though this group is a lot of just like pretty fresh tunes, still a lot of AA work on them. Like I haven't found much need to like burn on this guy anymore, but we'll tap a couple of things to save a little bit of mana. We won't actually do like our full burn here. We'll save that for the captain coming up next. And actually what I'll do here is, let me flip over. I've got a stun bandolier here. Let me flip over to melee, because so I don't forget. Because I'll utilize, I've got a cleric up who's got stunned, but I don't have it memmed. So like my bard and my ranger, I'll just keep some stun weapons up on them, and that'll plow us through his mechanics without any issue. And the ranger can't headshot these anyway, so I'm losing a little bit of DPS going melee with him on these last couple, but again, we're talking a couple of seconds per fight. So yeah, that's basically the gist of it. Like what you're doing, it's what you need to get familiar with, and what'll take you probably a lot of time and some depth and some deaths. Is just figuring out like how to like move characters around. I'll show you in some group content what that also looks like, how you're going to want to position characters, and finding spots where you could have melee parked as well. Let me get a little bit of mana back here. As well, a lot of people prefer like casters with this, and there's definitely a part of that that's much easier because you don't have to worry about positioning, because they can just cast and sick pets from wherever. I just personally prefer melee over casters, so I just a little bit difficult on that, but it's a little more fun, at least for my sake. All right, so we got a 30-second break here. I'm going to tap 0 and refresh some stuff while they handle some of their personal squabbles. Let me tap 8 again and make sure I get my ranger on follow. We'll kind of move up here. We'll get ourselves in position. I noticed for some reason it looks like my Beast Lord wanted to get a little too close. We'll back him off so he's in range. We'll tap 9 here, and we'll get our burns going. And you'll see here he should be he's not even spending a second in his stance. Let's give him some Shadow Knight love too. good dual wielding DPS with stun will, at least in the group version, will get him out of his stance insanely quickly. I also need to fix my ranger burn. I've got it set up for, it doesn't have as good melee burn stuff in there, so he's not doing the DPS he should. But yeah, that's it. That's that mob. He was dead in what, like 54 seconds. So like it wouldn't even have been worth it to have gotten like so intricate that I've got my beast lord set up on different rotations, because everything would have nothing would have burned through to be done, to have needed to go to a second rotation. And you're hardly going to be in any sort of situations in groups where you need 10 minutes worth of stuff. I don't know, maybe if there's like 4 mobs up all in the same spot that you need to go through each one back to back to back kind of a thing. Let's take a look at how crappy the loot is. Oh, you know, a 125 spell is not bad. I don't need a BP or AUG, but everybody is set there. Which one? That's the... Yeah, that's no one needed. So, not the worst there. We'll take that one, because you probably get like 15 other levels for every 125. So, all right, grats, tribute, and everything else. So, yeah, that's it. That's a group mission run with ISBoxer up. As you saw, like, other than a couple of times just to manage some variances and things like that, like, everything is run from the main account. Doing some pretty decent DPS. It will never ever match what you can get done manually, obviously, but it should get you, 75% of the way there for most types of classes. Some better than others, especially like berserkers and rangers are a lot easier to set up. I think kind of why I prefer them over casters. Casters, you might need a couple more keys just to make sure there's more AA abilities and twin cast things that you want, like twisted in with normal spell casting. But yeah, we'll go ahead, we'll end it there. I'll try to do some group content next, so you kind of see what it looks like just grinding through zones. But yeah, thanks everyone. Let me know. I'll try to answer any more additional questions.